EET, that means welcome in Meta Netter. I'm Queen Mother, Initere Aset Akuakiti Haru with the Temple of Het Haru. And I want to start off by just saying Mother's Day is every day here on the Voices of Maat to all the beautiful mothers across the diaspora. Ashe. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and do my normal Hesi, our chant. I'll say that chant in Meta Netter, and then I will translate it into English. Pa Netter Ampu Pa Ma'at, Ankh Wise de Jeb, Ankh Unja Senib, Uben Nefa Akar Pa Inbu Haru Ma'at. In English, that translates to How Sweet is the Truth, Life, Power, Stability, Life, Prosperity, and Health, rising always in divine excellence with Ma'at every day, all day. Ashe. Now, before we get started, we have a very special show. And I also want you guys to please subscribe and like and share the channel Voices of Ma'at so that it can spread. So starting today's show, I'm going to ask our special guest to tell us a little bit about himself.
Atepu, greetings. My name is Baba Seba Amari Sneferu. I'm a Pan-African Garveyite, a Kemetic Saber, and founder of the Temple of Heteru. I've dedicated my life to the resurrection of African people and to the resurrection of African spirituality. In my official title in the organization, Baba Seba, the Baba is a Swahili word that actually means father. And the Seba is a Kemetic word / Medu Netta word that means teacher of the tradition. I would be remiss as a Kemetic Saber to not say a little something about, this spiritual orientation before I, go forward explaining a little bit more about myself. In the Kemetic tradition, we align ourselves with the values and the principles and the virtues of Ma'at. Centered in the centerpiece of Ma'at is the word justice. And I thought it was important to mention that because today's topic is going to deal a lot with justice. And so that folks will know that this subject addresses us because in our particular spiritual orientation is we have what's called a liberation theology. But we have a liberation theology in the realest sense of the word. Our theology is based on the natural. What I mean by natural, I mean based in nature, in real time, aspiration of liberation. We want liberation. And so we have spiritualized the effort and the concept of liberation on all levels. And, when we pray or when we meditate, it is traditional in the Kemetic tradition that we make an offering to our ancestors. The ancestors, in the context of our spiritual system, is our divine lineage. See, our ancestors encompasses everything because we, from our spiritual orientation, believe that we are the divine, which in other spiritual orientations, they call it God. But in our spiritual orientation, nature, which we refer to as Nater, is our divinity. So each and every one of us is nature in human form. So that would make us divine. We are the quote unquote creator in human form. And then we say that at the point of creation, that was us bringing ourselves into being. So we have a unique and very mature I consider very mature spiritual orientation that absolutely aligns with science. It doesn't argue with science at all. So I believe that this spiritual orientation will eventually be the spiritual orientation that most Black people will gravitate to, because
Okay.
as a society demands that we be more intelligent, that we grasp the technologies of the future. Our spiritual orientation is the only one that's not based on mythology, even though we have mythological symbolism laced throughout the tradition. But the overall concept is that we are the divine in human form. And so we embrace the values and principles and virtues of Maat, which is justice surrounded by compatible other values that encompass that whole concept. In addition, in addition to being the founder of the Temple of Heteru, I'm also the founder of the Junior Black Chamber of Commerce, which is a youth organization centered around cultivating our young people to be entrepreneurs. We have consistently over the years have provided our departing senior members of the organization with $1,000 scholarship each and
Awesome.
every uh, over the course of several years. Very proud of the organization, very proud that most of our young members have went on to college, and even one has graduated. So we had a very interesting, powerful alumni that's developing. And we encourage them to maintain their relationships with one another so that they can have future partnerships, regardless of the line, the industry or the business or area or field that they happen to be in. The other thing, I'm also a father. I'm a husband, and a Black-owned business. I'm a Black business owner of 29 years.
I say.
You know, I've had as I approach retirement, which is really never retire. All I do is change the primary focus of the business, where it used to be more or less construction development. Now it's more or less construction consulting. But at one time, I've had as many as 18 employees. And as I wind down uh, toward the new transition, is down to 2 people that actually work for me. But as I'm also an activist, you know, as an activist, I am a member of the Universal African Peoples Organization, founded and led by the President General Zaki Baruti and his co-founder Sophia Shaban.
I say.
Um, I would say, I always say that whenever if a team beats an individual every time. So for those of you who have passion in your heart for the advancement of Black people, and you're sitting at home or on the phone, sharing with your friends and family how you feel about these issues, I encourage you to join an organization, whether it's a spiritual organization like ours or a political cultural organization like the Universal African Peoples Organization, and, and be a part of an organized effort to bring change in the world. And that's pretty much who I am in a capsule.
Do I? Thank you. So moving on, Baba Seba, you reached out to me to do a follow-up actually of the last show coined The Verdict. What are the concerns that you felt needed to actually be followed up on?
Well, first of all, I want to say hats off to my brother, Minister Sharon Hopkins, for, participating in the discussion
I
in
sure.
part one. I have a lot of respect for him, and but that was a conversation. I think this particular video is going to be more so about teaching because there's some very important things that has to be emphasized, that we will not be doing though this subject of the verdict the proper justice if we don't come back and then emphasize the most important aspects of the things of this ongoing trial. Because number one, you can't say that people have been made accountable because the sentencing hasn't taken place. What if they give them 2 days in jail? You call that accountability? So this ain't over. The sentencing hasn't taken place. There's no need to clap your hands and celebrate anything, because justice is not visible until you see sentencing. So I wanted to come back and do a follow-up so that we can have a little discussion about the upcoming aiding and abetting trial of the 3 officers who were with or present during the murder of George Floyd. It's very important that we as a community be proactive. You know, I'm tired of us waiting until the damage is already done and then we hit the streets and want to be reactive. It's too late, the man's dead. You know, the atrocity has already taken place. And of course, that's out of our control. But let's try to tackle some of the things that we have the potential of having an impact on. And that's why I thought it was important to follow up dealing with the upcoming trial, or the upcoming trial of these 3 other officers in the trial that's dealing with the aiding and abetting. This is extremely important because we're really talking about, well, we're gonna get into the video. The second thing I wanted to follow up on was the question, who and what is a Keith Ellison? You know, I've had a few days to calm down. So sometimes, you know, but whenever I think about this guy, I had to put it in the question, who and what is a Keith Ellison? So I want to talk about that. And then from an overall perspective, I want to talk about white supremacy versus Black empowerment. White supremacy versus Black empowerment. You know, using the vernacular, who you with? White supremacy versus Black empowerment. Who you with?
Teach.
Those are the things that we want to cover today for the follow-up.
I've known you for a long time, Baba Seba, and I tell you, I sense that you are very upset. What exactly is it that has gotten you so upset? Let's talk about that exact thing that has made our Baba Seba so upset.
Well, yeah, you know me. You know, we've known each other
you
long.
were like, you was hot.
We've known each other a long time.
Yes.
And as we've decided to be partners in this endeavor to liberate the hearts, minds, and bodies of African people, we've gotten to know each other even more so. And I appreciate you, Queen Mother, and all of the things you do for this organization. It's really understated, but I want to let you know over there you're greatly appreciated. But in two words, to answer your question, what got me so daggone upset, trying not to use profanity, which I might not be able to maintain that, is Keith Ellison. Keith Ellison.
Who is that?
Keith Ellison. Which sparked my anger is that after our last show, you know, the 60 Minutes interview took place, and watching him on 60 Minutes confirmed a lot of things for me, you know. And, you know, once again, I wanted to deal with being proactive as it relates to asking the community to apply pressure, you know, as it relates to this aiding and abetting trial that's coming up. Because there's a higher issue at hand. It's not just about no 3 officers. We're talking about the problem of police brutality waged against Black people. It's just a part of white supremacy, but we're talking about police brutality waged against Black people. So there's a higher issue involved. And a higher issue as it relates to these 3 officers is silent complicity. Silent complicity will be on trial. And see, what we need from the Black community is to put pressure on prosecutors, to put pressure on judges, put pressure on the whole criminal justice system with the energy and the force that will make them feel the pressure. That we need a stiff and a harsh sentencing. We need a stiff and a harsh prosecution. Why? Because we want to make an example out of these 3 officers, not because of them individually, but we need to make an example out of these 3 officers in order to crush or dismantle this thing we call silent complicity. Because as we talked about in the previous video, everybody knows who the racists are on the job that you work. All of us, everybody knows who the racists are. But when it comes to white folks, when they're in the company of a racist, when they're telling quote unquote nigger jokes and what have you, it's just cute and funny to white folks because it's no threat to them, you know. But they can identify the individuals that are, I mean, a white supremacist is no threat to a white person. So the same thing exists in the police departments. And what the police departments all over America has failed to do, and I can't really say they failed because they've never attempted to do it. In our eyesight, most Black people who are, in my opinion, deceived, would feel that they have failed to purge those departments of these racist cop killers who are among their ranks. And so, politically speaking, we can take this opportunity to use our energy to disable, you know, to handicap, to crush silent complicity before, so that we can send a message across the country that these people enable these killer cops to have a job, to have a place. Because even in this particular case, Derek Chauvin put his knee on the neck of a Black man for 9 minutes until his last breath left his body. These 3 officers not only didn't save their life, which is their job to do, which we pay taxes, we pay their salary. So I don't appreciate every time we talk about a killer cop, somebody got to bring up the idea of, well, Black folks kill each other. That has nothing. We don't put, Black people are not on our payroll. Black people, we don't pay Black people out of our taxes to serve and protect. So we pay these individuals who are supposed to serve and protect. And then they turn around and kill unarmed Black people. See, those 3 officers were supposed to protect this man's life. They took an oath to serve and protect. They didn't have an oath to Derek Chauvin. They took an oath to serve and protect the community.
That's right.
So they failed. They failed. So they need to, when they go on trial, we need to apply enormous pressure on whoever prosecutor. And the reason why you feel this sense of anger in me, because this directly relates to the 60 Minutes interview about Keith Ellison. You see, Keith Ellison is an archetype problem for Black people. Let me say that again. Keith Ellison, because this speaks to the question, who and what is Keith Ellison? Keith Ellison is an archetype problem for Black people. We have other problems, but he is definitely a member of the archetypes, to do what he did in the 60 Minutes interview, you know? And one of the things, one of the things that got me, well, I guess we'll go. I got some things that I want to share on the screen that we can get into,
I'll show
and
you.
maybe I can stop and elaborate as we get on those things. But there's a second thing.
Trying to calm itself down.
Yeah.
I
Well,
say.
there's another couple of other archetypes that we need to discuss too. You know, political sellouts, they kind of speak for themselves. We already know they're not on Team Black. Let's face it, we got white supremacy and we got Team Black. Either working for the interests of white supremacy or you working working for the interests of Team Black or Black empowerment or Black liberation. And so the actions, the words, and all of the things that these so-called leaders are charged to do, they're either going to serve the interests of white supremacy or they'll serve the interests of Black empowerment. I don't believe there's no in-betweens unless, I'm all ears if there is one. On this interview, this archetype, which I coin as passive leadership, which I'm going to talk about, this passive leadership. This guy, well, let's go. Let me share my screen if I can. The host has to let me share my screen. You got to allow me to share my screen.
Okay, audience, while Baba Seba is getting ready to share his screen, I'm just gonna give out the Temple of Het Haru's telephone number. It's 314-561-2087. Again, if you need to reach the Temple of Het Haru, we can be reached at 314-561-2087. And also, to make donations and contributions, our Cash App is $, T, EMPLE, capital H, ETHERU. $, Het Haru. Let me repeat that. $, Temple Het Haru. So if you all feel as though you would like to make a contribution and a donation to the Temple of Het Haru, the Voices of Maat channel, please go ahead and do so. We appreciate that. How we looking, Baba Seba?
Let's see, you gotta let me in. Let's see. Yeah, you got to allow me to share my screen.
Okay. I thought I had already. Okay, here we go. Try it now.
All right, there we go.
Ashe.
Wait a second here. Can you read that, Queen?
Sure. White supremacy is a machine. Let me just move this down some. White supremacy is the spirit, energy, and the mindset that created the United States of America. America is a criminal enterprise founded on genocide and chattel slavery. Unprovoked.
Excuse me.
Go right ahead.
Let me interject a little bit here.
Okay.
Because I want us to really understand what we're dealing with, brothers and sisters. See, the concept of America is an abstract concept, but it's also a physical entity that involves itself in development, expansion, politics and what have you. But before any of that can take place, it is an abstract concept. See, the abstract nature of America is the glue that holds it together. If it was a body, it would be the bones that the meat is wrapped around. Because without the bones, a body couldn't walk. It can't work. It can't do. It can't fight. It can't kill. It can't save. It can't do business. It can't do anything without the bones. So the abstract nature of America, America is an abstraction, meaning it's an idea that the people, the citizens, have embraced. You know, we are, I don't, but a lot of the citizens have bought into this idea of a United States of America, and they believe so that when America calls your 16, 17, or 18-year-old to come and put a uniform and fight, you don't know these people. You've never met these people. But because you embrace this abstract idea of a nation, because when you look outside your window, you don't see borders on the ground separating Mexico from the United States. These are abstract concepts that people mentally have embraced. And these abstract concepts control in a large way the behavior, creating a unified behavior among masses of people. So it's important for us to understand that, because when it comes to dismantling a thing, if you understand that a lot of what makes up America is mental, it's the mental ideas and concepts that people embrace that is the glue that holds these people in together. I mean, you don't know the people that live in Kentucky. You know, sometimes I bring up the idea about Africa, and people are, I don't know nobody in Africa. You don't know nobody in South Carolina, but you can go to South Carolina and bond with a Black person in 5 minutes because you believe that you can. There's no difference in bonding with a person on the African continent that's of your same ethnicity. But America has got you caught up in its abstraction. And so it is very important for us to understand and see reality as it is. Go ahead, Queen.
Okay, I'm going to continue with white supremacy is a machine. Unprovoked, both crimes together constitute the highest unjustified atrocities ever waged against humanity. Yet, this is the foundation that America stands on. It is impossible for America to thrive under a uniform system of justice, so she relies on injustice. The source of America's wealth and power is white racism and injustice. They are the most important parts in the machine of white supremacy.
I want to say this, sister. You know, what our people don't understand as we go out into the streets and protest, the thing that we don't understand is that justice is something that's in the interest of Black people. Justice is not in the interest of America. America and justice cannot coexist. You know, as you just read, it was founded on injustice. It was founded on crimes. You know, the genocide of one people and the enslavement of another people. If justice was to take place, then they would be kicked out of the country, and they would be punished for the enslavement and atrocities that they waged against me. So justice in America cannot. It's basically an oxymoron. You know, I wasn't exaggerating when I made that point. Let me see. Let me share something else. Let me share the next slide here.
Y'all getting some of this work on the voices of my aunt tonight. Shay.
Let me make it big here. Is that the same one, Queen?
Yeah, go to the next one. Other important parts of the machine include the falsification of reality, public school indoctrination.
Wait a minute. Let me talk a little bit about the falsification of reality, because It is very important. It is very important, you know, to practice with the babies when it comes to the Santa Claus myth, and as well as religion. It's important for us to believe literally in mythology. All of those things are included in this thing called the falsification of reality. You're talking about a people who will give you a definition of a continent, but when it comes to Europe, they will reject the definition that they created and call Europe a continent. When there's no 3 large bodies of water surrounding Europe. Europe is just Western Asia, or they'll call something the Middle East as though that's a country. You know, it's a falsification of reality. It's very critical for them to maintain this hold on the minds, which also leads to maintaining a hold on the bodies of men and women. Go ahead, sister.
Ashe. Public school indoctrination. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. The key, most Black people will tell you, most Kemetiu, AKA Black people, will tell you that our biggest problem is education, but a lot of them don't understand. Well, that's absolutely true, but a lot of them are not really aware of what kind of education that would be necessary to create a people that will move themselves upward in the direction of liberation and Black empowerment. African-centered schools are critically important to us becoming brothers and sisters. We are spinning our wheels. We've been under the thumb of being oppressed by the same people for over 500 years. I'll come to talk about the machine and how the machine works, and the parts of the machine that we seem to be caught up in that controls and directs our behavior. And this behavior is doing nothing more than maintaining the machine as it is, white supremacy. So we cannot stand here and say we want to fight voter suppression and we want to fight all these things, but then we acquiesce to the system that produces that adversary. Go ahead, sister.
Okay, now this third one I'm not familiar with.
Okay.
The shadow policy makers, I have no idea.
Yeah, you got public cryptocracy. You get what I'm saying
Public
is you have a duality. You have a public government. You have a public government where you got your senators and your representatives and your judges in the court system, you know, your 3-branch government. And then you have individual families, and you have individuals who are behind the scenes who are controlling government.
I see.
Many of them are extremely wealthy individuals. They don't want their names exposed.
They pulling the strings.
They also, you got secret societies, and you have these organizations who are very private but play powerful roles in maintaining white supremacy. In most cases, Black people are not. In most cases, Black people are not a part of those groups. Sometimes they'll put a token Black in there, but he won't be around for the real meetings. But go right ahead, sister.
Corrupt courts.
That speaks for itself.
I say.
We were talking about justice. White supremacy cannot exist perpetuating a system of justice. Now, once you come into the reality of that, then you'll know how to fight. You know, my brother was emphasizing in the previous video that Black people don't know how to fight. The purpose of this follow-up is to encourage us to fight in a proactive way. We need to add pressure where pressure can be added, you know, and whether we're successful or not, this needs to be the activity that we have as we face this upcoming trial. Go ahead, sister.
Okay, next we have terrorism, i.e. KKK, lynching and intimidation.
Extremely important to the maintenance of white supremacy.
Global militarism.
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 Yeah. And see, that's the key, because white supremacy is a global system. So global militarism is greatly important in order to maintain or to quell all of the threats to his power. You know, that's where you see those assassination of Patrice Lumumba. You know, all of that is, the assassination sometimes of people that we only suspicious that it happened, like Bob Marley. A lot of us feel that Bob Marley was given cancer cells. Uh, these are a lot of African liberators have been assassinated by white supremacy and their global militarism apparatus. Go ahead, sister.
That's deep. Government informants, silent complicity, killer cops.
I highlighted silent complicity because this is the matter that's
Right,
at
what you
hand right
discussed
now.
a little bit earlier.
Absolutely. Go ahead, sister.
Killer cops, political sellouts, passive Black leaders, and Black political bipolarism.
Okay, that's a term that I created, Black political bipolarism, and I'm going to explain a little bit about that. But I would say Keith Ellison would fit in the category of passive Black leaders. Passive Black leaders do not serve the interests of Black people. Passive Black leaders serve the interests of white supremacy. Let me give you an example. I could tell, and the brother, Minister Sharon and I discussed during part one, how Keith Ellison was concerned about unrest. And so he decided to charge Derek Chauvin with second-degree murder. And then he had the audacity to come to us and lecture us about not being happy because justice was not served. Now think about this, Queen. He had the audacity to lecture us about not being happy, which I wasn't happy in the first place.
Neither was I.
About the guilty verdict, and he said that justice was not served. Now, when I say audacity, because you are the number one reason why justice wasn't served.
See,
justice would have been a conviction for first-degree murder. You started the case by only charging him with second-degree murder. Justice was off the table instantly when he did that. So you are the first reason that justice was not served. How dare you come and tell us or lecture us about, accountability. The accountability was served. Accountability has not been served because sentencing hasn't even taken place. See, so what I'm saying to you, Queen, when I say that passive Black leaders serve the interests of white supremacy, because what causes unrest is injustice.
yes.
There would be no unrest if it wasn't for the initial injustice. And so white supremacy does not want the unrest. That's the last thing they want, is the unrest, but they're committing the acts of injustice. And who comes and stand up and speaks for white supremacy? This man is actually doing things from the position of power to prevent unrest. No, the way you prevent unrest is not to commit the injustice in the first place. Keith Ellison stopped working for the interests of white supremacy. Go ahead, Queen.
Ashe. That was the last bullet on that one, Baba Seba.
Oh, okay. All right, then let me stop there, share for a second. All right, and pull up the next one. I could have just scrolled to the next one, actually.
I think we having a little school. It's
Well,
all right.
This class
That's
today.
all right.
This class today.
It's needed.
We really do. We really do. Let's go to the next slide.
Okay. An urgent proactive follow-up of 3 areas. Number 1, silent complicity. Number 2, passive Black leaders and Black political bipolarism. Silent complicity on trial. The upcoming aiding and abetting trial of the other 3 officers who were present and who did nothing to stop the murder. The higher issue here is silent complicity. Proactive pressure must be applied. Proactive pressure must be applied. The legal fight is for harsh convictions and harsh sentences.
Absolutely, sister. I can't overemphasize this, this need to be proactive. We are going to have to, this is when you make a lot of noise, you know. See, white supremacy and police violence against unarmed Black people is a Black problem. But there are some white people who decided that they want to fight for that. Now, I don't expect anything from white people. And people might say, well, why are you having a show to pick on Black people? No, it's not a show to pick on Black people. I expect absolutely nothing from white people. Absolutely nothing. So whatever they do, but I expect, because I'm going by the history of this relationship, the history of us living in America and all the things that we've been through. When we make gains, and as soon as we make gains, here comes a backlash to try to reverse the gains. I expect absolutely nothing from white folks in America. So I understand that this particular show is marketed to Black people. So I'm speaking to Black, to a predominantly a pretty much 99.9% Black audience. So this is a class, so to speak, to help Black people learn or to understand the dynamics of what we're dealing with and to motivate us to the call of action. And this is where we apply our energy and action, being proactive, trying to fight for harsh convictions. Why? To make an example out of these 3 individuals.
Right, and that 99.9 rounds out at about 110%. I say, so Derek Chauvin was convicted and now awaits sentencing.
For those who are not familiar with the individuals in this trial, I just wanted to show that Derek Chauvin is the guy on your left.
The first guy.
Yeah, the first guy.
The first guy.
The other 3 officers. And see, the other 3 officers are pathetic, you know, in terms of character and courage. They actually participated in the falsification of the police report. They turned in a police report to the captain, the Black captain or whatever he was, the chief. And the chief had no idea that this wasn't just a normal, they thought that George Floyd had died of health conditions. If it wasn't for Darnella, I can't understate how much respect and reverence I have for Darnella Frazier. Darnella Frazier is a voice and a name that Black people should be shouting to the sky, because Keith Ellison is the size of a pea compared to Darnella Frazier. Darnella Frazier is the reason why all of this took place.
This or is anything that took place. It.
She's the reason for it. She's the one that recorded it.
I say.
And the quality of her recording gave us a chance at justice. Slim be it that, but a chance at justice. But not only that, these guys would have got away with filing a false police report. They wouldn't be in jail today if it wasn't for this beautiful 17-year-old Black girl, Black woman.
Salute.
And we need to honor and praise this young lady, because this is the kind of thing we need to encourage. We need to encourage this. And when you praise and celebrate folks that do things right, by the same token, you are encouraging that behavior to be repeated by others.
I say, you know what's interesting about this picture? So you got Derek Chauvin, you got this guy who appears to be some type of an Asian. and then you have a regular white guy, and then this other young man on the end here. I'm not too sure about him, but
Yeah,
I
I'm
guess
not.
I guess I'm bringing that up because they seem like they're a mixture of ethical
Ethnicities. Mhm.
groups.
And that just goes to
So
show you.
I'm
Mhm.
wondering if they're going to try to play on that as they often do.
Well, they're going to be tried together, from my understanding. They're going to be tried together. And so, uh, we talked about indoctrination. We talked about, uh, buying into the mindset of what America is. See, if these individuals see themselves as Americans, then they see themselves uh, essentially as white because the values,
Absolutely.
the culture, the religion, everything is European. If they in fact embrace that, I
I
think the
say.
brother on the right, I don't know if he's obviously has some African in his blood, but I don't know if he's Arab, claiming a mixture of one of those ethnicities. I'm not sure.
Yes. Do we have any idea, Baba Seba, of what his name is, this guy on
Yeah,
the
yeah,
end?
we have their names. We have their names. Um, Actually, the Asian guy name is Tao Theo.
Okay. That pretty
Uh,
much speaks for itself.
I think the black looking guy, I believe his name is Thomas Lane.
Thomas Lane.
Yeah,
Okay.
I could be mistaken on that, but I believe that's correct. And then the other white guy, I think his name is Alexander Quang or something like, or King.
Yeah, Thomas may
Queen.
have a black and white parent or some sorts.
Could be, could be. Let's go to the next slide.
I expect absolutely nothing from white folks. Killer cops shooting unarmed black people is a black problem that we must solve.
Okay. When I say that, I say that because too often black people think that this thing cannot be fixed unless white folks get in here and make this happen. Until we grow up as men and women. See, all of our problems, these problems are made by human beings. This is a human problem. Whatever a human being does to a people, that thing can be undone to a people. If a human being did it and you're a human being, why don't you believe in your capability to undo it? Like, let me give you an example. Keith Ellison, as a prosecutor, he didn't believe that he can get a conviction for first degree. Then you shouldn't have been a prosecutor. You don't even believe in yourself.
Teach.
To deliver justice. That's the first requirement for that, should be for that position, is you got to believe in your own abilities. You already have an inferiority complex. You're already surrendering to white supremacy. You
Look
didn't
at
even
that.
believe in yourself to try to convict him on the crime that he actually committed, first-degree murder. We witnessed a first-degree murder, but because he didn't believe he can get it, because he failed to believe in himself,
Teach.
he settled for a second degree because he believed more in the power of white supremacy than he do in the power of his own ability to persuade the public.
Break that foolishness up, Baba Seba. Ashe. Who and what is Keith Ellison? Keith Ellison is a problem. Keith Ellison is an Keith
Archetype.
Ellison is an archetype problem for committee for black people. It's not just him. He represents a whole category of passive black leaders. Wittedly or unwittingly, passive black leaders serve the interests of white supremacy. Keith Ellison's Minnesota's Attorney General and lead prosecutor in the Derek Chauvin trial sat down for an interview on 60 Minutes. He made the jaw-dropping statement that the murder of George Floyd was not a hate crime.
Hold on. Hold it right there. Brothers and sisters, how can you be black and live in America? In that statement not totally insult you? How can this man utter from his mouth the absolute obvious nature of that crime? Sometimes, what I noticed in this particular scenario, the Derek Chauvin, the chief was a black man. The chief is a black man. Sometimes these frustrated racists, they can't stand black supervisors. If folks that know those racists that's on their job cannot stand to be led by a black supervisor. I remember I used to have a white employee, and he was very experienced. He was actually older than me. And whenever I would go to order some supplies or leave the job site for any reason, now you working for me, he would jokingly utter out statements like Cadillac contractor, and things of this nature, because what was eating him inside is that a black man was his supervisor, or a black man was his employer, that a black man was his boss. I used to work for a company where a superintendent and myself we set up a trailer and prepared to do a development on a Snooks, a total addition on his Snooks. And we both worked for a black contractor at the time. He was a supervisor under this black contractor. The black contractor said nobody in this company will work on Martin Luther King's birthday. Nobody. This white employee who was a supervisor, he didn't understand. He was like, I don't see why we can't work if we want to. We got a lot of work to get. And I was so happy to say, because you work for a black company right now, nobody works.
Nobody.
That's what the black man said. So you have to do it. I felt so good telling that, because it was a part of him that always felt he was better than the company owner, because the company owner was a black man. But go ahead, sister.
The interviewer stated following Ellison's cowardly answers, the whole world sees this as a white officer killing a black man because he is black.
Now, hold on right there. This interviewer, which was a white man, showed more courage in his question than Keith Ellison showed in his answer. This is pathetic. I call it passive black leadership. This same thing happened to Andy Young. I remember when I was a young man, I used to really admire Andrew Young, until when he was appointed the position of ambassador to South Africa under the Jimmy Carter administration. And he went to South Africa. And when he was among those people who were struggling with apartheid, the real Andrew Young came out, and he sympathized with his black brothers and sisters over in South Africa. And he made the statement that there are political prisoners, there are black political prisoners in America too, because they were talking about Nelson Mandela. At the time, Nelson Mandela was incarcerated. And he made the statement, he said, I feel for you, because there's black political prisoners in America, in the United States of America too. And when he said that, Jimmy Carter was totally upset. It made the headlines around the world. That Andrew Young, the ambassador for the United States to South Africa, said that there are black political prisoners in the United States. And Jimmy Carter was so upset, he reprimanded this man in public. And then Andrew Young came out in public and apologized. He literally, I was about 18 years old. This man apologized for telling the truth. Passive, now who did that benefit? See, his policy, it benefited white supremacy. Passive black leaders serve the interests of white supremacy. Go ahead, sister.
Because Andrew could have stood on that.
He could have stood. So then I learned who he was at that time. He defined himself. He had the courage of a pea. At one time, I believe he was a great man, but he showed us who he was, just as Keith Ellison has.
Keith Ellison stated prior to the interviewer's comment regarding the brutal murder of George Floyd, "We don't have any evidence that Derek Chauvin factored in race."
Unbelievable statement.
Wow.
Wait, we have no evidence that he factored in race. You know, I mentioned about the frustration of a white supremacist working for a black man. He couldn't do nothing to his boss. But as he had his knee on his neck, all he could think about is that black boss he has to answer to every day. So that knee stayed on his neck because he didn't have the power to do anything to his black boss, but he could do something to this black man who he had ultimate power of life and death over. And he left his knee on his neck after enormous pleas from people around him that you're going to kill him, let him go. This man was merciless, relaxed with a hand in his pocket, in total defiance that I'm going to kill this nigger today, and then lied on a police report.
But we don't have any evidence that factored in race.
Only a passive black leader would say such a thing.
Ellison also stated in the interview that as a career defense attorney, he feels sorry for Derek Chauvin.
Now that was a dagger in the heart to the black community. Number one, as a defense attorney, which that was the majority of his career, this time he was in a position as a prosecutor. But as a defense attorney, he's relating to Derek Chauvin? Your job as a prosecutor, now visualizing yourself as a defense attorney, your mind should have been on George Floyd, who was dead and had nobody who could represent him. You should have been thinking about, I'm the defense attorney for George Floyd. That's where your heart should have been. That's where your compassion should have been. You disrespected that man's family by saying on national TV that you felt sorry for Derek Chauvin just because you were a defense attorney. Your spirit as a defense attorney your heart should have been with George Floyd and his family. So that was a slap in the face of his family, and it was a slap in the face of black empowerment. It was a slap in the face of the whole black community. And if you're talking about accountability, you need to be accountable for slapping us in the face with that disrespect. You need to be accountable, Keith Ellison. And I don't hate the brother because he's not alone. He's an archetype problem for us. But we are spinning our wheels in terms of uplifting and making progress as a people on a global level, because these are the things that people are not aware of, because we fall under the spell of these political games that are played on us each and every day of our lives.
Ashe. First Mohawk Conference on the Negro question. The first Mohawk Conference on the Negro question. Political
Let me say something
sellout.
about that.
Okay.
Let me say something about it.
Okay.
These white men got together in New York at some rich estate and put together a conference on the Negro question. Now, this is in 1890. And they were trying to figure out, since they're not our slaves anymore, what kind of black people do we need to create? Because through education, you shape minds, you shape personality, you shape interests. Not one black person, and there were black leaders at that time, not one black person was invited to this conference as they sat there and tried to design an educational process that would shape and mold the black people of this country. Go ahead, sister.
Okay, hold on. I'm not sure. I lost the screen share.
You want me to reshare it? It's still up on my end.
Yeah, I don't see it at all. Hold on for a second.
Just go back to your Zoom. Should have a Zoom tab at the bottom. You want me to come out and put it back?
Yes. Give us a minute, family.
You see me?
I do. Yeah, I'm
Okay,
not sure what happened.
I'm gonna share the screen again.
Okay, do I?
You see it?
Okay, thank you. Do I? Political sellouts, passive Black leaders, and Black political bipolarism. Now, Baba Seba, I don't see you on the screen anymore like I see myself.
Can you see the rest of the words?
I do, but I'm trying to see how I can get you back on here. There you go. I got it. Okay, all speak to the shaping of Black leadership as laid out by the education plan established 1890 at a 3-day conference at Lake Mohonk, Ulster County, New York. Among the opening remarks of the conference, it reads, I had to move this down.
Before you read it, I'm just gonna give a little back
Okay.
back information
I
on
say.
this. At this conference was held by quote unquote white liberals. You know, we talked about recently in the news there was people talking about America is not a racist country. You know, the abolitionist movement, which we read about so much in our history books, was really only about a 22-year movement in its real power, and it had some legs. You're talking about from 1855 to like 1877. Whatever amount of years that is. Um, and they were considered extremists. Now you say America is not a racist country, but for somebody to say that Black people should not be slaves, those people were considered extremists at that time. I meant I would have put an article up so that you can see that. But at this particular conference, Rutherford B. Hayes, which was an ex-president, was invited to chair this conference. And Rutherford B. Hayes' candidacy in and of itself was controlled by a shadow, what I was saying. They made a deal. See, because what happened was Rutherford B. Hayes actually won the popular vote, but lost the electoral vote. And so they had a problem. Usually whoever wins the electoral vote is the president. But the North and the South sat down, the congressmen from the North and the South sat down in a room and made a deal, in a closed door deal, not on a congressional floor, but in a room. They made a deal, and they and after the doors opened, they had an agreement that we would make Rutherford B. Hayes the president if the North agreed to withdraw the troops from the South who were protecting Black people after the Civil War, or after the Emancipation Proclamation, or after we so-called had our newfound freedom. We had troops in the South protecting us from white racists. So the agreement was to pull the troops out of the South and to build the South a railroad, to stretch from the east to the west. They didn't have one. That's why they lost the war, because Lincoln could reinforce his supplies because he had a railroad that stretched all the way across the country, and he could supply his troops as needed. So when Rutherford B. Hayes became president, we took a big L as a people, because the Ku Klux Klan established himself and lynching went off the charts. We were vulnerable to white supremacy. Now this man who was supposed to be a liberal, he chaired this meeting, and you're reading some of his words.
I believe if they are not so educated that they will become a dangerous element to the community, liable to be thrown at any moment into the hands of the demagogues who who may use them for bad purposes. I believe that our only safety is to give the Negro a Christian education. I'm gonna
Okay,
read that again.
brothers, yeah, please repeat that.
Let me read it and then I'm gonna let you talk about it.
No, you can read it.
I believe that our only safety is to give the Negro a Christian education.
See, brothers and sisters, stop running from the truth. Christianity has been used as a tool to create a passive nature in Black people. All of this took place after the Haitian Rebellion. The Haitian Rebellion took place in 1804. Haiti was liberated. Haiti was liberated by people who embraced Black empowerment. So white supremacy did not want another Haiti to take place here in the United States. So they knew that it was important to create an education that would pacify the nature of Black people.
That's deep.
They had no better tool than the Christian doctrine.
Now, I don't know why every Christian in the entire world would not be upset about that. That's deep. That is deep. This is what we are called together to consider. Mind you, there were no Black leaders invited to the conference. Let me read that again. Mind you, there were no Black leaders invited to the conference. Let me pull this out the way so I could. Below are the words of the former US president and so-called staunch abolitionist who was selected to chair the first Mohawk conference. In the southern states are 7 million of colored people, of whom probably 1/2 are unable to read and write, and illiteracy in their case, we are told, mean for more than ignorance of letters. It means a condition according to a high authority, compounded of ignorance, superstition, shiftlessness, vulgarity, and vice.
And now check this out. Now this is the ex-president of the United States. This is an abolitionist. This is supposed to be a liberal. Now this is how he sees Black people. Now these are the people who are shaping the education for the future of Black people. This is how their minds work. This is the mind of the people. This is the man who chaired the meeting. This is the most powerful man in the conference. This is the way his mind worked. He was saying not only are they ignorant of reading and writing, he was saying that ignorant go beyond the ignorance of reading and writing. He was saying we're morally ignorant. This is the way he thought of Black people. Go ahead, sister.
There may be gross exaggerations in the tales we hear of the voodoo paganism. Let me say something there. Gross exaggeration, voodoo paganism. Now, mind you, this man was the president of the United States. He knows the history of the Haitian Revolution. The Haitian Revolution, voodoo was their spirituality. See, they had an African spiritual system that gave them the inner power to rise up and gave them the mindset. They had an African spiritual system that made rebels and freedom fighters out of those people. He's aware of that. And see, this is what he's trying to eloquently misrepresent. He wanted to call it voodoo paganism because he's trying to demean the spiritual system, because this spiritual system represents an enemy to his own. And so he has to demonize it. Who is this former U.S. president at the time, Baba Seba?
Huh?
Do we know who this former U.S. president is?
Yeah. This is Rutherford B. Hayes is the one that I mentioned earlier. Rutherford B. Hayes, he was the one that became president in 1877, but his term was over, and this is like 1890. He's chairing his conference. So this guy is supposed to be, this guy was in Congress. This guy was, I think, the governor of Ohio. This was a main political figure. This is how he talked about Black people. But yet, These folks say America is not a racist country. This is how a liberal felt about us. Imagine the conservatives wanted to hang us by a tree. Go ahead.
Which under the name of religion lurks, if it does not prevail in the cotton and cane growing districts of the South, known as the Black Belt. There is, however, enough of truth in these statements to call for investigation and action. One of the devoted friends of the colored people tells us that their ignorance, indifference, indolence.
Yep, indolence.
Shiftlessness, again, shiftlessness, superstition, and low tone of morality are
prodigious
hindrances to the development of the great low country where they swarm. It is perhaps safe to conclude that half of the colored population of the South still lack the thrift, the education, the morality, and the religion required to make a prosperous and intelligent citizen. Wow.
Okay. Brothers and sisters, you mean to tell me you value an education that was given to you by people with this in their mind in terms of how they feel about you? I mean, this is a no-brainer. These people are white supremacists.
To the bone.
And they had in their hands, they were in a power position to shape and mold the future minds of Black people.
These are the kind of men who shaped the Negro education to subdue, control, and produce the kind of Black leaders we still have today. And the sad irony is that they represent the liberal side of white supremacy. Thus, we have our political sellouts, i.e. a Tim Scott, who said recently that America is not a racist country, i.e. a James Claiborne, majority whip in the Congress, a passive Black leader who recently said America is not a racist country. And the Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, also said America is not a racist country. The Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris, also said America is not a racist country. Again, passive Black leadership.
Remember at the beginning, let me say this. At the beginning of this video or the screen sharing, I said that one of the components of white supremacy that makes the machine run is the falsification of reality. Now, what Black person or even white person that ain't lying would say that America is not a racist country?
Not even
unbelievable. It's unbelievable how these passive Black leaders can say this with impunity from the Black community. There's not enough backlash. There's not enough pressure. See, we're in control of the pressure. You can make it extremely uncomfortable for people when they say these kind of things. If you would let your energy and let your voice be heard whenever these people disrespect us with comments like this.
Right. Because all you got to do is just say one word, explain.
Videos like this should be coming from all over the country whenever they slip up and say things like this.
Ashe. All three politicians play a critical role in maintaining white supremacy. All three are participating in the falsification of reality. White supremacy will lie, must lie, and cannot breathe without lying. Greater is the sin when you lie for your enemies. However, justice is not blind. It will ultimately see its way to make you pay. Ashe.
Now, again, we don't hate these people. You know, me and Metu used to say together that within every Negro lies the potential to be a Black man or a Black woman. I mean, they just need to come off that foolishness. You working for the interests of white supremacy, you need to work for the interests of Black liberation. You need to work for the interests of Black empowerment. You can't do both. And I know you standing there with Black skin, stand up for your people and do the right thing and speak the right way. Show us some respect. Show us that Black lives matter. See, because you showing us that white lives matter. You showing us that white supremacy matter to you, because you can disrespect black people and then turn around and then slew the slogan, Black Lives Matter. How dare you speak those words? And then you say publicly that America is not a racist country. Shame on you.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, Baba Seba, go back to that picture, Baba Seba.
Okay.
For me, please. If I'm not mistaken, if I'm not wrong, but I think I'm right, all three of these quote unquote African Americans are married to white folk, correct?
I'm not sure about James Claiborne. I'm not sure about him.
I'm gonna see if I can look him up. I know the one on the left and in the middle, definitely.
Yeah, the one on the left, he's a political sellout. He's definitely he's on Team White.
Yeah,
so
I'm gonna look
that.
up James Claiborne's.
Yeah, this guy, Tim Scott, is the only Republican senator in Congress. And he makes no bones about it. He represents white interests, hands down. So, I already see him as a casualty of war. The war is being waged against black people. I just look at that guy, Tim Scott, as a casualty in that war. I've written him off. He doesn't even count in terms of us trying to uplift and move our people forward.
Is James Claiborne, is that Claiborne?
Clyburn, James Clyburn is.
Oh, Clyburn, okay.
Yeah. He's a majority whip.
All right, Ashe.
Oh, I'm going back the wrong way.
These are the kind
of. Wait a minute. I'm going the wrong way. There we go.
Passive black leadership will lie to the people to maintain the status quo of white supremacy. This has got to stop. Founded and developed on the institution of slavery, America was racist before it even had a constitution. The Comprehensive Negro Act of 1740, the act made it illegal for enslaved Africans to move abroad, assemble in groups, raise food, earn money, and learn to write. Additionally, owners were permitted to kill rebellious slaves if necessary. The act remained in effect until 1865.
Now you're talking about 1740 when this act was implemented. This wasn't even the United States celebrates its birthday in 1776. This is before it even became an official country. So how in the world can you say that America is not a racist country when it was founded on racism toward black people? And that's what we were talking about, because they were responding to the George Floyd trial. They was responding to it, and they literally made this falsification of reality, and they comfortably told the people a lie. This is unacceptable. This is unacceptable.
Black political bipolarism is another schism that is paralyzing our progress as an African people. This too must stop. Classic example: Johnny Robinson, 16, and Virgil Ware, 13, were both killed in racial violence in the Birmingham, Alabama area on September the 15th of 1963. The day a bomb killed 4 girls at the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham. Following the bombing in Birmingham, Alabama, Robinson and several others were allegedly throwing rocks at a car draped with the Confederate flag. A Birmingham police officer, Jack Parker, who was riding in the back seat of a police car, shot and killed Robinson. Virgil Ware, age 13, was shot in the cheek and chest with a revolver. A 16-year-old white youth fired the gun and killed Virgil Ware. Dr. Martin Luther.
Before you get to that part,
Okay.
I wanted to mention something about black boys. Now, they was responding to the bombing of 4 little girls. Where were the black men? See, fear is a part of white supremacy. Black boys were so upset. They stood out and they took to the streets and couldn't do nothing but throw rocks. But at least they felt they had to retaliate in some way for this heinous crime against their peers. But it just speaks to how black men, brother, that's embarrassing. That's shameful. that you wasn't tearing up Alabama. Folks criticize me for saying unrest ain't cool. Unrest is cool when there's injustice. I'm gonna put it on. I don't have a problem with unrest. If you got a problem with unrest, stop committing injustice. Don't tell me how to respond once you slap me in the face. Don't slap me in the face if you don't want me to knock your teeth out.
Ashe.
Go ahead, sister.
Dr. Martin Luther King delivered a funeral address for 3 of the little girls killed in the bombing. A separate service was held for the 4th victim.
Okay. The reason why a separate service was held for the 4th little girl, because her mother was tipped off what was going to happen during the funeral, the speeches. They was going to tell Black people to calm down. She was aware of that, and she didn't want to have no parts of that. So she decided to have her funeral separate from them, because
say that again, Baba Seba.
That the mother of the 4th victim did not want her daughter to be a part of that funeral. 3 of the girls had the funeral together. The 4th mother heard that leaders were going to come in to calm down the community and get them to be passive and not to respond, in a radical way against the murder of these children. And she didn't want no parts of that.
That mother wasn't having it.
She wasn't having it. So we'll have our own, now. Now, with this said, Dr. King, that's why I say Black political bipolarism. Black political bipolarism. That's very important, because when you I have made some notes about it. Dr. King is an eloquent speaker. He's one of the most courageous Black men we ever produced. But sadly, this political Black polarism, this is a schism that on Monday, he's strong, on Tuesday, he's weak. These are the things that we have to tolerate because of this schism. So the schism is a problem. And I just wanted to put that down before you read the rest of what Dr. King said when he was eulogizing the 3 young ladies.
Out of the powerfully beautiful words that he spoke, these are some of the other words that Dr. King spoke. They say to each of us, Black and white alike, that we must substitute courage for conscience. They say to us that we must be concerned not merely about who murdered them, but about the system, the way of life, the philosophy which produced the murderers. Later in the speech, Dr. King goes on to further say, and so I stand here to say this afternoon to all assembled here, that in spite of the darkness of this hour, yea, well, we must not despair. Yea, well, we must not become bitter. Yea, that's right. Nor must we harbor the desire to retaliate with violence. No, we must not lose faith in our white brothers. Yea.
Now, hold it right. Now, mind you, these vicious subhuman beasts just bombed a church and killed 4 little girls. And this is what many people believe he was sent to do. He had a powerful, if you were to read this speech, it is one of the most heartwarming, emotional, beautifully, most eloquent speeches this man has ever given. But he had to put in this speech. This is the part of the speech that gives instruction. And the instruction that he gave benefits white supremacy. See, it's in the interest of white supremacy that there be no retaliation and violence. It's in the interest of white supremacy that you don't lose faith in white folks. The Mohawk Conference educated Black people. We need Black people to maintain and embrace that education that the Mohawk Conference gave us. This is what he's essentially saying. See, there's a bipolarism, schism that's at play in many of our leaders. It was in W.E.B. Du Bois, the way he went against Marcus Garvey when he was trying to rise up, but later realized he was wrong. We've seen it. I've even seen it as recent as in Louis Farrakhan when he did the anniversary of the Million Man March, when he said that leading up to the march, he was creating a groundswell, going city to city, giving speeches. He literally was saying, I'm looking for 10,000 Black men who are willing to kill and willing to die. That was a very revolutionary thing for him to say. It implied that he was tired of Black people getting shot down by unarmed Black people being murdered by police. He said, I'm looking for 10,000 Black men that's willing to kill and willing to die. This is what he said leading up to the second 20-year anniversary of the Million Man March. But when he got there, he dialed it back. Political bipolarism. Monday, political bipolarism. On Monday, you stand up for Black liberation on Monday, but bow down to white supremacy on Tuesday. Courageous on Monday and cowardice on Tuesday. Black and strong on Monday, yellow and weak on Tuesday. Fighting for the liberation of Black people on Monday, but capitulating to white supremacy on Tuesday. Go ahead, sister.
I stand corrected. I looked James Claiborne's wife up, and she actually is an African American.
I thought so.
Ashe. Somehow we must believe that the most misguided among them can learn to respect the dignity and the worth of all human personality.
Wait a minute, folks. Now, remember, this is Dr. King talking. Go ahead.
This is a classic case of Black political bipolarism. This has to stop. That's deep. Black empowerment is also a machine. We need to proactively pressure. We need to proactively pressure and promote the nomenclature of its functions. Embrace an African spiritual system. Embrace an African spiritual system. Disable silent complicity.
Hold up, I'm going to say something about when you are a free people and you want to compete on the world stage, everybody else who's competing, they have their own language, they have their own religion, they have their own culture, they have their own values. How in the world are you going to be an adversary in the competition when you're speaking your enemy's language? That's why we feel it's very important to embrace an African language. I encourage us as a people to embrace Swahili, which is a language that is spoken by many peoples on the continent. And some people are even learning how to speak it in South America. And I also encourage the learning of Medunetta, which is our sacred language. Medunetta is the first written language the world has ever known. The first written language that the world has ever known was created by Black people. That's why it is sacred to us. That's why we are taking the time to try to recapture and learn this language. Because if you want to be a player in the world, if you want to be an actor on the world stage, well, damn it, get your own language, get your own religion, get your own culture. Everything you got should be Black.
Yes.
White people don't speak an African language. Chinese people don't speak African languages. They have their own language. That's a self-esteem issue, brothers and sisters.
Know thyself.
Apologize for getting upset, but go right ahead.
That's all right, Baba Seba. Embrace an African spiritual system. Disable silent complicity. Celebrate Black courage. Fight for justice. Strive for Black excellence. Embrace Pan-Africanism. Support Black businesses. Support Black family. Support Black marriage. Stand up for Black manhood. Stand up for Black womanhood. Let me add, stand up for our Black babies.
That's right.
Stand up for our Black children. When we do these things, power will not be at our fingertips. Power will ultimately be in the palms of our hands. Ashe.
Ashe. I'm going to end the slide there, and as I know it's getting close to time to wrap up.
Very powerful, Baba Seba. Just a grand lesson that needed to be had. Dua.
Well, I want to say in closing, it is important for us to celebrate our own Black heroes and sheroes. I think it's important for us to, again, to recognize Darnella Frazier and hold her high. You know, just as white folks recognize their soldiers and heroes, when you talk about the subject of police brutality and the murder of innocent, uh, uh, unarmed Black people by killer cops, you know, Gavin Long and Micah Johnson were soldiers against that cause, or soldiers in that cause. They literally shot police officers. But see, Black people are so afraid to mention their name. That's a part. That's a part of the fear. There's somebody. I mean, these guys didn't go out and kill a white cop just for the sake of killing white cop. They were doing it as a form of protest against the murder of unarmed Black people.
Uh-oh.
It was in 2016.
White discomfort. That was our first voices of Maat with Seba Metu.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Shame.
So Gavin Long and Micah Johnson should not be forgotten by us. They gave their life because they were killed, but they gave their life to end police brutality. They took action. You know, they took everybody don't have to do the same thing. They took action, but their heart was in the right place. Their desire was to bring an end to this injustice. And so they took up arms. They were trained by the United States government, and then they used their training against a government or against a police department who had been murdering unarmed Black folks. So we sit around like we're ashamed to honor somebody who are trying to make a difference in bringing a solution. I think we need to, think about, Stacey Abrams, who was tireless. We might not believe and agree with her stake in the system, but this lady is a voting rights activist who actually made a difference. That Joe Biden would be sitting in the White House if it wasn't for Stacey Abrams and her leadership. We're talking about powerful Black people. We just need to encourage these Black people through our pressure points to stay on the right track, to stop falsifying reality with lies to please your slave masters. We need to just stay on them and make them better people, because, like I say, they are our people, and they have qualities that are valuable. So I want to encourage us to be strong. I want us to be smart. I want us to learn how to analyze the things that are put in front of us. I want us to stay together, be strong, and love your own people and fight for Team Black, because whether you like it or not, war has been waged against Black people.
Ashe. Dua so much, Baba Seba. I think that was a very interesting and edifying show that you came to enlighten us about. So I'm gonna go ahead and say my normal thank yous. I wanna say, of course, dua to our Baba Seba Amari Sneferu of the founder of the Temple of Het Heru. Dua to Chief Seba Pianki Patah Mantu Amin Ra, and he's actually the producer of our channel. So do it to you, brother, for all your hard work. Do it to our other Sabers, Seba Metu, Seba Kimra. Do it to Dr. Raketi Amin for her wonderful teachings of the Meta Netter. Do it to our first elder, Rini Ankh, and our Queen Elder Regina Dennis Nana. I want to say do it to our children all over the world. Do it to the Temple of Het Heru members and all the supporters. We appreciate you. Do it to my parents, Roy and Princella Small, for my existence. Until next time, committee, you Black family, Black people, Shem Imhotep, and go in peace. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe.
Imhotep.
Voices of Maat. Voices of Maat will evoke truth, justice, righteousness, reciprocity, balance, order, harmony. To be conscious, gifted, and black.